So I know I've talked about this among upon nauseation, if you will, if that's a word, or depending on how you say that phrase, you know. But the thing is, it's still worth talking about, especially when you see people bring it up on Twitter or X, as it's called now, through retweets or whatever, and even talking about how certain scenarios just basically did not feel right in the long run. They just did not feel right, and they'd be right in their opinion. But let's be honest. When we look at the Mecha Sally arc from a story perspective, a character perspective, we all know that Mecha Sally arc did not do Sally any good. It's like we get why he did it, why he went the route, where she became Mecha Sally and all that. We get all that. We get why Ian Flynn wrote the story, like I said, and how to go the route that she did, that allowed her to become Mecha Sally. We understand that. We get it. But still, really? You're going to do this to a beloved character? Especially after you spend, and this is the truth, especially after you spend 10 issues, 10 issues, if you will, getting her and Sonic back together. You spend 10 issues, officially starting at the end of 211, all the way up to 222, you spend a majority of 10 to 10 and a half, 11 issues getting these two back together, officially making it happen in 222, only to undo it, basically in the span of less than a year. I mean, it took you about a year, a month or two off from a year, a month or two away from a year, but it took you mainly about a year, almost a year, to get these two together, and it took you less than a year, basically about 8 issues, 8 months, for you to tear that apart. And I think that's why fans didn't like the story and at all. Not just the repetitive direction it went in, but the fact that Ian Flynn basically built up bringing Sonic and Sally back together only to do what he did. And to do it in a way to where it just felt like it was a slap in the face to Sally. And this is why a lot of fans always got on Ian Flynn's case of the fact of, he favors Sonic and Amy. He wants Sonic and Amy. He wants Sonic with Blaze. He wants Sonic with, so-and-so, or, this character or that character from a female perspective. You had fans getting on him with stuff like that, all because of what he did, all because they felt that this was a, slap in the face, to a beloved character. And here's the thing, he comes out later on, when they start doing the soft retcon reboot, and we all know why that happened from a behind-the-scenes standpoint, but he comes out later on saying, by the way, I'm not going to do any more romance. I'm not going to do any more romance with the characters. The only exception being, though, he ends up putting Bunny and Antoine back together as a married couple. That being the only exception. Everything else, not going to happen. Not going to happen. Here's the question I think a lot of fans have, for Ian Flynn. And don't get me wrong, Ian's a good writer. He is. And I've had my issues with him too. Don't get me wrong. But here's the thing. If Ian didn't want romance in the comic, why didn't he just come out and tell the fans, look, like you, I want to see Sonic and Sally back together, but I don't want any arguments. As far as the comics go, they are an item. Deal with it. Why didn't he just come out and say that? Just say, hey, as far as the comics go, they're an item. Deal with it, learn to love it, and if not, you don't have to read the comic. Why didn't he just do something like that? I mean, I know it might have sounded rude, and inconsiderate and everything, but if he would have just said something like that, I think fans would have understood that, okay, fine. Comic is not for me. I'm a pro Sonic Amy person or Sonic Blaze person. It's not for me, so I'm not going to read it because he's going to have Sonic and Sally as an item. Why didn't he just say something like that instead of doing what he did? To me, it just didn't make sense. It really didn't. I mean, from a story perspective, I get why he did it. As I said on numerous nauseating occasions, every time I've talked about it, I get why he did it. He wanted to create his own magnum opus. He saw what Ken Penders did with Endgame. He sees what companies like Marvel and DC do multiple event comics, every now and then. And he wanted to do the same. He wanted to have his own magnum opus. He wanted to have his own Endgame. He wanted to basically put the Sonic comic, whether it was Archie or later on IDW, he wanted to put it on the map and on the same level as those comics. But the difference between them and Sonic, whether it's IDW or Archie, is DC and Marvel have multitude titles based around certain franchises. Multitude comic book titles based around certain franchises that allow them the liberty to go from one comic to another to continue the story. It allows them that freedom and that liberty. Sonic, whether it's IDW or Archie, does not have that liberty. It's either one issue, one comic, or two, and that's it. It doesn't have that liberty. And I think Ian kind of forgot about that. He didn't realize that if he wanted to do something like this, hey, go to Archie, go to IDW and say, hey, I need one or two more Sonic comics to work with, because I want to create this big magnum opus. If he would have done that, fans wouldn't have had an issue. They wouldn't have an issue with him doing what he did with Sonic and Sally, building them back up, only to tear them apart, and everything. It's like they wouldn't have an issue with that. Because you know why? He could have started the Mecha Sally arc in the main Sonic comic and then continued it in universe, as well as in the other spin-off Sonic comics they could have had, and been done with it, and then focused maybe once in a while the main comic on basically non-Mecha Sally stuff. Like basically say, hey, that Mecha Sally story, that's another time, another place. Here's a comic that takes place the way it should be. Well, here's a story that takes place the way it should be. But he didn't do that because he didn't realize it. But I'm getting off topic here. The point I'm getting at, again, I get like I said numerous times, I get why he did what he did. But the thing is, why build up bringing these two together just to tear them apart? It didn't make sense. It didn't. And then you come out and you want to slap people in the face figuratively by saying, oh, I'm not going to do romance anymore, except, I'm just going to put Bunny and Antoine back together as a married couple. It's like, what? It's like if you did not want, romance in the comic, why didn't you just say you're not going to do romance? Just leave it at that. Or, heck, if you were going to keep Sonic and Sally together, why didn't you just, as I mentioned earlier, just go online and tell folks, hey, look, I know a lot of you don't like Sonic and Sally, but they are the primary romance, or the primary couple in this book, in this main Sonic book. They've been the primary couple in the Sonic Saturday cartoon, so I'm going to keep it at that, and if you don't like it, hey, maybe the comic's not meant for you. And that's it. That's all he had to do. That's all he would have had to do. But he did not do that. He didn't do that. Instead, what did he do? He decided, okay, I'm going to build up Sonic and Sally's romance, or build up the relationship, get them back together in 222, spend a new year doing that, and I'm going to end up destroying it within less than that. It's like, dude, we get why you did it. You want to bring Sally's character full circle, show that her family, her friends, her people, her planet mean more to her than her own freedom and everything. So yeah, we get it. But basically it felt like a slap in the face. And I think a lot of us know that. I think a lot of us, throughout these past, my goodness, decade. Yeah, past decade, believe it or not. I think a lot of us know that. Believe it or not, this time frame that we're in these past few months currently marks 10 years since the reboot happened. 10 years since the reboot happened, and 10 years since Ian Flynn came out and said, oh yeah, Sonic and Sally are not an item anymore. We're not doing that. It's like, then why did you even bother putting them together if even after she got de-roboticized, which was your original plan, you were just going to make them be friends and that's it? Why even bother bringing them together? It did not make sense. I mean, I know Ian Flynn might come around and say, well, that was part of Sally's, rebuilding phase. She had to get back together with Sonic before everything happened. Fine. But the thing is, the one thing fans always will have question of is why, if you were going to do that, fine. But why drag the story on for as long as you did? I mean, as I've mentioned before, a story like this does not need to go on for nearly 2 years collectively. When you take, the main comic issues and some of the issues from Universe, the Sonic Universe comic, collectively it's almost 2 years. It did not need to take 2 years for this to be told. You could have told this in the span of 6 months and that was it. That was it. You could have done it within the span of 6 months. Done. I mean, here's what's crazy, okay? Even though they take a long time to get done. Archie Sonic Online has pretty much done a better job at what Ian Flynn could have done in less time than 6 months. Yeah, they take about maybe a yearly, quarterly kind of time to, put out an issue. That's true. But the point is, they did a better job was not only going the route that Ian probably was going to go with originally, if it wasn't for the behind-the-scenes lawsuit issues that caused the reboot. Not only did they go in that direction, but they did it in a way to where not only was Sally restored, but basically it felt like now you didn't even have to worry about that anymore. Like you were building her back up, you were resolving her issues, and it's like done. It's like Mecha Sally, it's like you read that part and you're like, Mecha Sally arc? What Mecha Sally arc? I don't know any Mecha Sally arc. They did what he could have done within 6 months. They did it in a quicker amount of time. In my opinion. Heck, you know what's even crazier? They did a better job with endangered species than he probably would have done originally, with what he had planned. Yeah, they did a better job with endangered species. They even resolved that Thrash Tasmanian Devil character, putting all the echidnas in limbo and bringing them back out. It's like Ian, how can people that were fans like you were at one time, how can they do a better job than you? That's what gets me. Is how can they resolve in a quicker amount of time? Yeah, it takes a little longer because they gotta, do this, they gotta do that. But they have all these other issues before it that helps you, keep up and build up and, get you up to speed and everything. How can they do a better job than you, at, resolving things? I don't get it. I mean, look what they're doing with Bunny Rabbit. They're resolving her story in their universe take. And it's like, how can they do a better job at that than what Ian did? Or what Ian probably was planning to do but didn't do. I'm just saying. It's like they, again, it's like, talent-wise, colorist-wise, writing, script-wise and all that, yeah, it takes time. Don't get me wrong. But even within the span of a quarter of a year or a year period, you could see the end result and you could see they did a better job than Ian. And Ian, all he had to do was take the main plot points that he wanted to focus on with this Mecha Sally arc, take them, focus on them, and get this done within the span of 6 months or less. But he didn't. Why do you think Endgame is so beloved? It's beloved because Ken Penders, whether you like the guy or you don't, Ken Penders, within the span of 4 months, 4 issues, if you will, 4 months, 4 issues, took everything that he had planned, took all these little things that he had Easter egged into issues prior, and resolved them within 4 issues. Yeah, he had to do he had to use a super special to do a director's cut of the 50th issue the way he wanted to tell it. Yeah, he had to do that. And he had to, even before that, use a backup story to tell Bunny and Antoine's situation in Endgame. But the point that I'm getting at, ladies and gentlemen, is even without the director's cut, and even with it, he was able to get things done within that kind of a time frame. Ian could have done the same with the Mecha Sally arc. And you know what? Not only could he have done it in that time, but by resolving everything within a 6-month range, guess what? You restore Sally, you get her back together with Sonic, and then you can worry about doing a reboot. Then you can worry about it. But, what are you going to do? What are you going to do from a behind-the-scenes standpoint legally? And what are you going to do with a guy whose constant goal, whether it's Archie or IDW, he wants to create his own magnum opus that's on the same level, if not better than Endgame, and is on the same level, as anything Marvel and DC puts out from an event comic standpoint. Why? It's like, what are you going to do? It's like, why argue? Now, as I've said before, don't get me wrong, I thought the soft retcon and reboot, I thought it was okay. It felt familiar, if not different. Yes, they did hint, whether Ian wants to admit it or not, he kind of has. They did hint that they were going to it seemed like they were going to put Sally with Nicole. They did hint that, especially with Spark of Life. Don't get me wrong. That's very noticeable. But the point is, though, if you wanted to still go that route, even before that, you could have. With the pre-reboot, you could have done that. And all you had to do was take the main story you were putting a lot of emphasis into and just look at them and focus on the main elements you wanted to and get it done within a span of 6 months, at most. But he didn't do that. He was determined to do his own magnum opus. And what happened? He wasn't able to accomplish that. He had to basically rely on IDW to do with the Metal Virus arc. That's what he had to do. But the point is, whether he'll admit it or not, people will look at this story arc of Mecha Sally and be like, yeah, this is probably one of the worst stories. Well, I wouldn't say worst, but there's a majority, 75% of fans will come out and say, yeah, this Mecha Sally arc was not the best idea you had. And not because of the repetitive direction, no. But mainly because of the fact that it was the result of basically taking something that he had built up, for a year, almost a year, and that being Sonic and Sally's relationship, and, just slapping it right in the face, and basically slapping fans right in the face by destroying it within less than, within less of the time that it took to get them back together. That's what happened. And I think that's why fans will always look down upon this. Not because of its repetitiveness, not because Ian was trying to create his own magnum opus or anything like that, no. Because basically, he figuratively slapped the fans in the face by taking something that he was building up for almost a year, that being Sonic and Sally back together, and then destroying it in less than that. I think that's why it's looked down upon the way it is. But I could be wrong. But what do you guys think? Let me know down below in the comment section, as well as the live chat during the premiere. Like the video. I know it sounded like I was rambling a bit. I do apologize. I am tired. I did work today. But guys, give me your thoughts. And until next time, I will talk to y'all later. God bless. Take care.